Let's finish dynamically linking the tail. So next, we'll need to create a world node to orient the tail against. We can use a point helper for that. We'll have the display set to cross only and the size set to 20. And now to center this, we can always quick align it to our global control. We'll also want it linked to the same object. That way, no matter how we reorient the character from this control, the tail will always be oriented properly. Okay, with it still selected, let's go ahead and add this to objects to hide. And then we'll go ahead and rename this to PT World Node CNS, so we know it's for our constraints, 01. Alright, at that point, we're now ready to add this object to our Orient Constrain target list. Let's go ahead and grab our group and head over to our motion panel, and right underneath the Orient Constrain rollout, we'll go ahead and use the Add Orient Target tool. And now take a look at this. Right now our weight is set to 50. The first weight should still be set to 0. So if we were to grab the pelvis control and start to rotate, you'll see that the tail will be oriented to our world. Very cool. So now it's time to work on a custom parameter to drive the two targets. Let's go ahead and add that to our main tail control, tail A. So that's selected, we'll move over to our modify panel and add our attribute holder first. We'll rename this to extra controls. And now we're ready to create our first parameter, which is of a string type. We'll name it orientation, and then under default text, pelvis, so we know what the tail is orient constrained to. Alright, so now we can go ahead and choose add and make our animatable parameter. We'll name it follow. Let's also switch the type to float. And we're going to go ahead and work with the default range. So at 0, the tail is fully weighted to the world, and at 100%, it will fully follow our pelvis. And now it's just a matter of tying everything together. So with the animation control still selected, let's go ahead and wire our follow parameter into our group's orientation constraint, weight 0, which represents the pelvis. So the first connection is very simple. Let's use the bottom arrow, choose connect. The second one is going to be a little bit trickier because we need a way for the weights to change in reverse so that when our follow parameter is set to 0, our world's weight is set to 100% and vice versa. So this is a matter of using a function and a very basic expression. Let's go ahead and work on that. We'll grab the next weight and we'll use the lower arrow. We'll start with our expression. That's going to be follow minus 100. So here's what this is going to do. It's going to tell Max, okay, when our follow parameter is set to 0, go ahead and set the world's value to negative 100. When follow is set to 100, the two values will cancel each other out, giving us a value of 0. But the only problem is we're moving in reverse. So we need a way to keep this all in a positive range, and we can use the ABS or absolute function for that. So before follow, let's go ahead and add ABS, and we'll concatenate our follow expression. And now we can go ahead and connect. Alright, so let's go ahead and test this out. Right now, follow is set to 0, so what that means is as we start to rotate our tail, you can see that the tail is oriented to the world, as it should be. However, watch this. When we grab our animation control and start to adjust our follow value, increasing it all the way to 100, you saw a few things. One, we get a very smooth blend, and now 2, you'll see that the tail is now fully oriented to the pelvis. Alright, very cool. So at this point, we can go ahead and set the pelvis back to 0. And then feel free to go to the follow parameter and set that to 0 or leave it at 100. But if we were to bring it to 0, you'll see that despite it being oriented to the world, it will always follow the global control properly. Beautiful. So guess what? We have finished setting up our controls. What's left is to just clean things up and also to create a selection set for animation. And then we can get into skinning and setting up that corrective target, which we'll use for the horse's neck, and we'll see why shortly.